My child-free neighbor went into a rage because my baby was crying story. I am the father of a 1-year-old toddler. Recently, she started teething as her molars have started to come in. First, it was the top ones for about a week, then we had a week's break, and now the bottom ones are coming in. It's clearly causing my daughter a lot of pain, especially at night. Before she was a good sleeper, but now it's been rough. She's been waking up around 1 a.m. and then 3 a.m. daily, screaming with her little fingers in her mouth. My wife and I have tried comforting her, bringing her into our bed. She sleeps in our room anyway, and her crib is next to our bed, but normally she likes to sleep cuddled up when she's uncomfortable. We've even given her baby Motrin to help with the pain, but she still screams for about 10 to 20 minutes each time until we are able to settle her. It's shrill and it sucks, but there's not much we can do beyond what we are already doing. We live on the ground floor of a new condo building. It's made of heavy concrete and decently soundproofed, but not perfect. Above us lives a single woman in her late 20s, early 30s. This is an expensive part of town in a new building, so we can assume she's decently moneyed. She also keeps her balcony door open all day and night that faces into our courtyard. She has been punishing us during the day by blasting loud music directly into our unit by putting a stereo next to her balcony. We are on the ground floor and have a fully enclosed courtyard, so it vibrates around. She's got great music taste, and my daughter will dance to it all day long. So while my wife hates her intention, I think it's worked out just fine, until now. Last night, she came barging down at 3 a.m. and rang our bell 4 times while we were trying to settle our daughter. Motrin works for about 8 hours, so by 3 a.m., we have to give her another dose and wait through the cries, cradling her for 15 to 20 minutes for it to kick in again. My wife, a strong-tempered petite woman, amplified by her first year of motherhood, wanted to go fight her then and there, but I said let's just concentrate on settling the baby and ignore her. I also didn't want to make the baby any more upset than she already was. So yeah, I just let her fume outside my door at 3 a.m. Was I the bad person here? Response 1. Everyone sucks here. Your comments about her are awful, especially that daddy is paying her way. Her response to the loud music is childish. Is there some reason why you can't move the doses of Motrin so that it works all night? Maybe a dose at 11 p.m. That would allow all of you to get a much-needed night's sleep. Also, I think they make cold teething rings to help with pain. Try harder for you, your child, and your neighbor. Reply 1. Also, go to a doctor. How is the baby screaming loud enough to disrupt someone else's life in, from his words, pretty soundproof building? Yes, I've been around babies. Yes, I raised kids. No, they weren't easy, which is why I also know screaming can strain, and you're supposed to be ahead of the pain. If you're having an issue, go to a doctor. It's not shameful if one doctor won't help find a new one. Also, I doubt neighbors have balconies open 24/7, but I guess that depends on what country they live in. She's a woman and alone. No woman is that stupid to have her door open wide at 1 to 3 a.m. Reply 2. The pain isn't a miracle drug. Babies are going to teeth, they will cry, and they need to be soothed before they can self-soothe. The neighbor is an a-hole. OP just sounds tired and angry, but their response was reasonable given the situation. Reply 3. I remember when my baby sister was cutting her first teeth. I was 14-15 and I literally cried with her sometimes. We alternated Motrin and Tylenol like clockwork, used the baby numbing gel, and had multiple icy teething rings and teething biscuits. We even let her just chew on our knuckles so hard it hurt. Held and soothed her constantly. Nothing, and I really do mean nothing, prevented the screaming. I can barely tolerate the sound of screaming children most of the time, but damn, do I know that it's not necessarily the parent's fault, and it's on me to manage and decrease my own stress reaction to it. My neighbor has a toddler, and I have nothing but compassion for her when I hear that baby screaming, even if it does drive me to put headphones on. At least I have the option to escape my pain. Reply 4. I'm convinced half of the internet has never seen a baby in their lives. Yeah, babies sleep between 9 and 14 hours depending on age and individual child. It's around 10 for an atypical 1-yo. Add in a sleep routine which can be up to an hour depending on the night, and the fact that you can't always tell if the pain is going to be an issue that night, and you're doing your best to only use these meds as needed. Motrin isn't great for anyone to use constantly. Oh, and don't forget that everyone metabolizes meds differently. so you might actually be looking at 6 or 7 hours at most. Alright, so all that accounted for, sure, put the kid down at 7 after a 6:30 dose. Wake them at 2:30, hoping they aren't already in pain by the time the next dosage can be given. Oh, the kid is awake and wasn't in pain, but now they're pissed about being awake? Wow, who would have possibly guessed? Or the neighbor can be an adult in a multifamily home and buy a damn box fan. Jesus wept. Response 2. Information needed. Why aren't you staying ahead of the pain? Why wait until the poor thing is hurting? Reply 1. We give her a dose of Motrin at 7 p.m. when she sleeps, but it wears off between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., and we have to give her another dose. They say we can't give another dose until at least 8 hours have passed. Reply 2. Everyone sucks here. Adjust her night dosing to 10 or 11 p.m. so she's not waking up the neighbor at 3 a.m. every night. Talk to her pediatrician about other options for pain management. Your neighbor sucks for blasting music, but at least she has the courtesy of doing that during daytime hours. Reply 3. By OP's own admission, the music doesn't bother them. If it's not a problem, I can't give neighboring YTA votes. That's kinda how apartments work. If the other neighbors are cool with it and no one has told her to stop, it's fine. For all we know, it has zero to do with OP, but her just liking music or drowning out sound in a work-from-home situation. Daytime hours are not expected to be quiet hours and are negotiable. I can just text my upstairs neighbor if they're gaming too loud when I'm working from home, and they are cool with it. Same if I have music going. Night hours are a different story, and as many have pointed out, there are ways for OP to mitigate. Ringing the doorbell when your neighbors are too loud is also a courtesy versus going to the building manager, and OP seems unaware of that. Very likely, if the wife tried to fight the neighbor, she was going to find an even more tired, pissed-off person on the other side of the door. Response 3. Everyone sucks here. She could be more understanding, and the stereo thing is stupid and childish. But as a person without kids, why should she be awakened because your child is teething? Is it not her fault? But you seem to have no sympathy for her position. You even go so low as to suggest her apartment is paid for by her daddy instead of her, which seems like a low-grade, passive-aggressive insult. I am not suggesting that you should somehow force your child to stop crying, nor am I suggesting that you are doing anything wrong. Teething is a normal part of child development, but that does not mean your choice to have a child should infringe on other people's choice to get a good night's sleep. Why not go knock on her door and apologize for the nighttime crying? In fact, I would knock on all your neighbors' doors and apologize. Your unit started this, so take responsibility for it. Reply 1. Honestly, thinking that no one should be inconvenienced by anyone else at any time if they've not caused it themselves is such a bizarre way of going through life. Living in a community with other people, you will experience things not of your own making from time to time. If you want to live without the possibility of being disturbed by a person who cannot help themselves, like a baby, you should live alone, far from other people, not in an apartment building. Reply 2. When you live in an apartment setting, you expect a certain amount of noise. It is going to happen. On occasion, that noise will even wake you up at night. But when you have a teething baby waking you up all the time, that is not what you signed up for. It is like having a neighbor's dog barking at night and waking you up. No, I am not comparing a baby to a dog. I am comparing noise to noise. OP's unit is literally invading other units around him. I get that it cannot be helped, but OP could extend the olive branch and apologize for the noise. In fact, he should have already done so. Go to all the connecting units, apologize for the inconvenience, and give them a plate of cookies or a coffee card. Acknowledge that there is a problem and that it is coming from your unit. Explain that you are doing your best to resolve the issue, but to just say other people have to deal with their decisions is unfair. Alternatively, some could say that because they have a crying baby, they should move out into the middle of nowhere so they are not infringing on other people's ability to have peace. Reply 3. Nah, fella, if you live in anything other than a death cult that insists people don't have children, you've got to accept people around you on occasion will actually in fact be children or simply have children with them. Where do you think adults come from? Were you not once a child? Noisy children aren't a problem any more than rain or sunshine are a problem. They're natural and unavoidable. Beyond moving house or killing the kid, what the hell should OP do? Kids are noisy. People are noisy. Reply 4. There are also noise ordinances in every apartment I've seen that are not run by a slumlord. If your baby is waking people up at 3 a.m. consistently, you should absolutely apologize and attempt a solution to make it not happen. Soundproofing. Moving the Motrin does up like 30 minutes. Literally trying anything and explaining that to the people you're waking up at 3 a.m. consistently, babies will be babies and be loud. But apologizing for an inconvenience and maybe offering earplugs would probably go a long way. Response 4. So multiple weeks worth of a screaming toddler at 3 a.m. and you think your neighbor is an AH because she rang your doorbell at 3 a.m., right? You're the a-hole, and please do something about pain management for that poor kid. Reply 1. For what it's worth, my first cried way harder and longer than my second, even when the second was teething and the first wasn't. Babies cry, and sometimes much more than others. Colic is real, and it's a nightmare. There isn't always a solution, and nothing you do seems to work. Nobody needs to be an a-hole, though. It's just babies. Reply 2, no. You are still the a-hole in the situation. No matter if you did everything right to limit your baby's crying. Your neighbor didn't decide to have a kid, so if yours is making their life worse, that's very clearly not cool. Now, obviously, you can't change that, but to then go and even ask yourself if your neighbor is the a-hole is laughable. You do whatever you can to limit it, and then you apologize for the situation and ask them if there's anything you can do to make the situation bearable. You try to keep a good relationship with your neighbors. You don't start a kindergarten war with them when it's your decision to have a kid that caused the whole issue. Response 5. Everyone sucks here, but you suck more. Your neighbor sucks for how she seems to have handled the problem. If her music is directed at you, then she's taking the passive-aggressive route, and that's petty. However, I can understand why she's so upset. She doesn't have children and likely needs to rest before work like most other people in existence. If her sleep is affected every night, I'd be butthurt too. That being said, you are a bigger a-hole. Firstly, for not staying ahead of your child's pain. If this is a developmental phase she's been going through for some time now, you should be giving her pain meds before she gets to a level that continues to bother your neighborhood. Secondly, you're an a-hole for your daddy's money comment. If it takes so much money to live in the building, so much so that a single woman could not possibly be able to afford it on her own without daddy's help, maybe you and your wife should think about moving. You know, since you're so well off and can afford such an expensive apartment. It sounds like you can afford to not be an a-hole. You just don't want to because you've made the choice to have a kid, and now everyone must suffer along with you and your horrible wife. Wanting to throw down with the neighbor because your screaming child is disrupting her sleep is pure trash behavior. Do better. You're raising a child. Reply 1. To be fair, OP isn't doing anything when she goes the direct route of knocking on his door, so I think going passive-aggressive is justified. Reply 2. The music thing is bull. If the kid is bouncing around and dancing to the music, then she isn't a crying mess driving the neighbor crazy, so there's no reason for the neighbor to play the music during the day to mess with them. She probably just likes to listen to music, and OP and his wife turned it into something else. OP has no proof the neighbor isn't just listening to music. If OP said the neighbor was playing the music at 3 a.m. to fight off the baby's crying, but also keeping them up with the music, I would think then maybe that was something wrong to do. But that's not the case. OP and his wife, who wants to fight the neighbor because the neighbor bothered them at 3 a.m., funny since that seems to be what happens the other way around regularly, have just turned themselves into the victims. It's all about them and their baby, and no one else. Reply 3. You shouldn't just be giving baby medicine unless you know they need it. Teething pain can be short-lived or take a while, and no doctor will recommend giving a baby long-term Motrin ahead of schedule when you aren't sure they will need it. This is a lose-lose situation for anyone involved, and there's no way around it. For some babies, it's just bad, and it sucks for everyone. There's not an easier solution. Considering the baby settles within 15 minutes of a dose, that's pretty amazing, and no one should wake up a baby in advance to give medicine they may not even need. Reply 4. OP's doctor has already given the green light for a dose. However, for argument's sake, OP could start the evening with something like a frozen teething ring, and then give the baby her meds closer to an adult bedtime if the baby is uncomfortable or is unable to sleep by then. That way, the baby is asleep for the majority of when most of the neighbors are as well. It's not optimal for a kiddo's routine, but her current routine isn't exactly optimal for those living around them either. I feel like the neighbor should be a little bit more relaxed about the issue. However, OP could certainly make an effort to meet them more in the middle. Response 6. You say she has been punishing you with stereo placement. How do you know it's a conscious effort to punish and not someone simply not realizing what they are doing bothers you? Have you talked about it with her? Have you explained what the situation with the baby is? Also, how can one settle a baby to sleep when someone is ringing the doorbell constantly? Something doesn't feel quite like you've told everything related. Reply 1. It's conscious because she yelled at my daughter the other day from her balcony, standing inside so we could not actually see her, calling her a terror of the building. There is normally little logic in these situations, all emotion. My daughter is loud, but not unusually loud. I can literally just be in the other room, and as long as the door is closed, it's not that loud, but you can still hear the cries. We are from Mexico, so this is kind of normal in certain areas. We live in a part of town that is the hallmark of generational wealth and leisure, so the crowd in the building is very varied. Reply 2. You and your family are preventing her from ever sleeping through the night. It sounds like you guys are the terrors of the building, and everyone who has the misfortune to live near you would have a significantly better life every single day if you were gone. It's not unreasonable that she hates you when you're ruining her sleep every single night. If she did something loud that woke up you and your wife every goddamn day at 2 to 3 a.m., you'd hate her too. She's absolutely justified in her feelings towards you. You and your family are the ones causing an issue. Reply 3. You are very used to your own baby. It seems like from the replies that you are the self-centered one, and a judge one at that. Do you think because mom-dad pays her rent that she should put up with a crying baby? Or do you think you deserve more grace because you, in your opinion, earn your money by not living off of daddy's dime? Your kid is going to turn out like her. Reply 4. Sometimes sound travels differently through the floor than through the wall. If your bedroom is directly below hers, then the baby's screams are likely incredibly loud. Perhaps try to make sure you have the baby in a different room to minimize the sound that travels. It isn't fair to your neighbor to have to suffer sleepless nights. While it isn't your baby's fault for the noise, you and your spouse chose to have the sleepless nights by having a child. Your neighbor didn't get a say in that decision, and you do need to do everything you can to minimize the impact. Everyone sucks here. Response 7. Everyone sucks here. All of you need to grow up, and you and your wife need to find another solution. Maybe without thinking, fighting will help. Besides Motrin, if it's not working to the point that your baby is crying at 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., no one wants to hear a crying baby at 3 a.m. With that being said, she could be more understanding, but with you saying that she's using daddy's money to live in her apartment, it seems like you don't understand that women can be successful without having to worry about kids. Reply 1. There is no other solution to teething pain than simple painkillers. Teething rings, cuddles, oral gels do very little when the baby is in pain. Babies crying multiple times overnight because they're teething is a completely normal thing, and anyone who has any experience raising children will know this. Reply 2. Yes, an OP could at the very least get soundproof pads for the baby's room, sound deadening curtains, etc. But he hasn't. He just expects all his neighbors to deal with it and gets mad when they, rightfully, get upset after being woken every night for weeks, and then his wife threatens violence. Reply 3. So, what do you expect them to do when they are giving the baby pain meds at bedtime, 7 p.m., and it only lasts 8 hours at a time? 7 to 3 is 8 hours. Do you expect them to make the pain meds last longer than 8 hours? Do you expect them to wake the baby to make her take more meds before the 8 hours have passed? Reply 4. Yes, they should be waking her before the pain medication has worn off, and alternating medications to keep coverage up if needed over the gap. That's standard pain management practice. Response 8. I can understand the woman, as nobody gets any sleep when your daughter is crying. She is working every day, and it is hard to work while you don't sleep properly for many days or weeks. I am alone, childless, living in an apartment I paid for. I would be angry too if you were my neighbor. Reply 1. Exactly. This is what always annoys me about these discussions. People are like, they can deal with sleep deprivation. How do you think the parents feel? Well, the parents are presumably getting leave from work, or at least understanding from everyone in their lives about their situation. They also probably could plan to have the child at a convenient time in their lives. There is no maternity leave for a baby's neighbor, and you could be at the busiest, most stressful time at a stressful job, but life doesn't stop for you. Reply 2. Do you think people are on maternity leave when their child is 17 months old? Reply 3. One parent may stay home. Also, they were able to choose to have the child at a good time in their lives, and even if the baby was a surprise, they chose to take all that on rather than go with abortion or adoption. The neighbor has no say. Also, the neighbor doesn't get the grace that the new parents usually get in many areas of life. Reply 4. Fair, you'd be mad, but would you aggressively retaliate? Or would you try to contact your neighbor or complex management to maturely find a solution to the issue? In our last apartment, the upstairs neighbor was having sex so loud for so long, it was waking my 3-year-old daughter up in her crib. The walls were very, very thin, so he wasn't a pervert or anything, but Defo had a great sex life, as a guy in his 20s is entitled to have. But my 2-year-old was being kept awake nearly nightly with moaning, slapping, hollering noises, and some select phrases the couple was fond of. One weekend after them waking us all up, the third time in the night, weed is legal in Rhode Island, I used the broomstick, and then that Monday, I talked to the complex manager. It was embarrassing, and the walls were thin and I remember loud sex, it was fun, so I didn't like having to do that. But like you said, I had a kid to raise, and my husband had a job to work, and it was too much. OP's situation is even worse. They are trying as hard as they could try to keep the kid quiet, but kids are PPL, and people are expressive. What do? You can't schedule a molar to only push out between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. You can't reason with an infant to not wail its lungs out. You can't make Advil last 12 hours, and you can't give more doses because the kid is only working on 2/10 of a kidney. They're pretty sleep-deprived too. Why couldn't the neighbor have spoken to them at any time between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m., reasonable times for adults to discuss a non-emergent issue? Response 9. Wow, these comments are ridiculous. Babies cry. Sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes for hours. You should not be medicating your child on behalf of your neighbors. People who don't want to hear the natural noise of other humans should not live in apartment buildings. Reply 1. The neighbor can buy herself some noise-canceling earphones or earplugs. She can very well afford an appointment in a nice area and a stereo set, apparently. What's stopping her? She's clearly the a-hole here. Babies shouldn't be medicated based on your neighbor's preferences. These "you're the a-hole" votes are ridiculous. Reply 2. I mean, the even easier route is to close her balcony door at night and get a white noise machine or app. Reply 3. Yeah, these "you're the a-hole" votes are ridiculous. Possibly from people who haven't been near babies. Reply 4. I feel like they didn't even read the post since so many people are missing this key detail that she chooses to expose herself to outside noise at night by leaving the door open. It's annoying when it's trash day and the truck wakes me up, but I just close my windows and suddenly I can't hear it, and I just go back to bed. Reply 5. They were busy getting worked up about a comment that OP made and later deleted. Not defending the OP, but to me, it feels like everyone lacks empathy for the poor baby who's obviously struggling and defending an adult's childish behavior instead. Reply 6. For real, babies cry, and they can be pretty unpredictable about it even when not teething. My toddler has blood-curdling tantrums if he hears anybody coughing. It doesn't matter if they're in the same room as him or not. If he hears a sound from the other room that he thinks is a cough, he instant meltdown. I have no idea what to do to stop them. I try cuddling him to calm him down, but I also don't want him to think it's okay to shriek like that over a cough. I've tried distracting him with other things, but that makes it worse. I've tried just ignoring it, but he doesn't stop. We got desperate and played a YT video of just people coughing, hoping it would desensitize him, and this child was laughing his ass off at it and coughing along with it until his sister coughed in and he lost his marbles. I bring it up with the pediatrician and it gets brushed off. It has been a year and a half of this. I get he's a COVID baby, but come on, man, this crap is ridiculous. Our neighbor called the cops once, and I'm just like, yeah, I get it. This is the hell I'm living in. If I could afford a place that didn't have shared walls, I'd love it there. But this is what I can afford, and clearly, this is what the neighbors can afford too. so I don't know what to do except hope he grows out of it. Response 10. You're the a-hole. Reverse the situation. You don't have a baby, and hers wakes you up twice a night screaming. How long could you put up with it? Reply 1. I'd get earplugs or move to the suburbs. The entitlement of the child-free crowd on Reddit is insane, lol. Very old millennial yelling at clouds energy. I'm about as far from a family man as it gets, but this modern expectation that parents and families be completely invisible and bend over backwards to never ever inconvenience or bother anyone is just so inhuman. If it makes you mad, just remember that you're going to need those kids too when you're too old to work. Reply 2. As a person who has lived in multifamily housing for about 15 years combined, forever, you sign up to live in that type of housing knowing that you're going to hear your neighbors making noise, particularly babies. Do they have a newborn? Teething child? I'm getting a box fan and/or a sound machine. I would never expect sleep-deprived parents to keep a baby from crying for years. That's pants-on-head stupid. Response 11. You're the a-hole. Text about your neighbor is just lame and shows what person you are. Judgmental prick. She has the right to sleep at night. It is your child and your responsibility. I can bet that if your neighbor had a dog that barked at night, you would make a fuss about it, because she can't handle it and you and your wife are so tired and can't sleep. This is the same. You decided to have a kid. Why is your neighbor suffering the consequences? Your child, your sleepless nights, not hers, and you should do everything to not be a nuisance to others, especially at night. Reply 1. A dog is not a child. WTF is wrong with you? I get people love their fur babies, but they need to stop comparing them to humans. A dog is a piece of property. A child is a human being with a right to live. Children also eventually stop teething. OP and his wife are doing everything they can. Redditors are so out of touch with reality. Reply 2. You didn't understand. You just read dog and flipped. You don't control crying babies the same way you don't control barking dogs. Playing loud music, for example, is your choice. So if you listen to loud music at night, you are an ah. But a baby and a dog in this situation are the same. If they are loud, especially at night, you can't switch them off. But you must do everything you can to ensure that they do not disturb others. If not, and you are trying to put some blame on neighbors, you are an ah. You have a baby. You wake up at night. Great, it is your baby after all. But waking up others every night is just selfish. Oh, it is just a baby, and his teeth are growing. Well, who cares? Neighbors want to sleep. Exactly the same with a dog. You decided to have one. Great, if he is barking at night and you can't sleep, well, you wanted him, so you can't blame anyone. And if you want to sleep, work with him or don't. Your choice. But if he wakes up others, you have to work with him so it won't happen again. Here, he attacked his neighbor. He didn't say sorry, and he didn't say that they are working with the doctor to find a solution for this. His child is crying every night, and he is, well, it is what it is, we tried, but it didn't work, so others have to accept a new reality. The neighbor should buy a rooster and say the same. You can't control it at all. That's why it is banned in some cities. Noise and nuisance regulations give everyone the right to sleep at night. Why is complaining about babies unethical? Oh, and one more thing. If a dog is a piece of property and you are responsible for it, your kid is also a piece of property.